Hey, what's up, guys? My name is Jun Tlongwane, and on this channel, I focus on South African politics. I give commentary on politics and current affairs from time to time. I really want to talk about the Government of National Unity in this video. The GNU, basically, as the structure that forms the government that is currently governing South Africa at the moment, since we came out of the elections in May of 2024. Does sometimes feel like a sideshow, which is understandable. The individual political parties, the different leaders within the political parties do tend to dominate. And obviously, news focuses on what is newsworthy. But I just want to give you guys my take on the good, the bad, and the ugly of the GNU since its formation. It was formed in June of 2024. So we are almost through with a year of this GNU. So I'm going to give you guys my take. And before I give you my take on the good, the bad, and the ugly pertaining to the Government of National Unity, I also want to give you my take on how I think we got here. So firstly, my take on how we got to where we are, where we have a government of national unity, is basically an optic. To call it a GNU is an optic. It's a PR spin by the African National Congress, because we know the ANC is the party that got the highest votes, even though they lost the majority, but they're still the biggest party. They are the ones that initiated the GNU. They are the ones that invited all the different players to form part of this GNU. It's an optic because in practice, a GNU operates as a government coalition. It's power sharing. You've got different parties. They shared the seats or the cabinet seats amongst each other. You've got ministers from that player, that party, and that party. And that's basically a coalition government. We know coalitions from local governments. We always see this formation. But I think by calling it a GNU and not coming out right and saying we are part of a coalition, the ANC is basically signaling that, hey, it's basically a temporary solution. Many people would know that a GNU is basically something that is formed after a major crisis, after a huge shift, right, in terms of how politics is going, just to be able to save the country and make sure that things don't fall apart. Different parties from different ideologies come together to say, hey, for the good of the country, we're going to come together and we're going to form a partnership or whatever to take the mandate forward. So that would be what a GNU is essentially designed for. But in the case of 2024, the only crisis is the fact that the ANC lost power. It's a crisis for the ANC that they lost power, not a crisis for everyone else, just for them. So let's talk about the good, right, when it comes to the Government of National Unity. The good, in my opinion, is that we can all now see clearly that South Africa is not short of men and women who want to play a part, who want to contribute. And not just contribute, but also do so within the confines of our constitution. We do know that the South African constitution is unique to other countries for very specific reasons, taking into consideration our past, where we come from. So we are not short of men and women who are willing to play their part, right? It doesn't mean that for a leader or someone to hold a ministry, that they all have to come from one factory. Now there is actual proof that people can come from literally any party, any area, anywhere. They don't even have to come with struggle. The struggle credentials. They don't need struggle credentials in order to act as a minister and deliver on the mandate and do a good job. So that is mostly what I think is good when it comes to the GNU. I think we're able to now look at the different ministries. We're able to now look at the different people who hold those ministries, and we're just able to separate people from parties, because I think that is another problem that tends to happen, that people either shielded by the political organization, or people are not able to act out fully and really come forward because party mandate, right? So I think that is really a highlight for me, that, hey, we now can see, for example, take the Minister of Education, right? She's bringing in something different. I was listening to a podcast where she was speaking about how she's introducing new ways to assess learners, not just taking the matric results as the only way to say our basic education system is doing well. But assessment is happening at grade 1 level, at grade 3 level, at grade 7 level, at grade 9 level. By the time we get to matric, we know that the people who make it all the way are really people who deserve to do so. And just by introducing these small little measures, you can tell that, hey, it doesn't have to be someone who comes from the same factory. They don't have to have struggle credentials in order for them to play a part and really have positive impact Okay, to get to the bad when it comes to the government of national unity, I'm not sure. Do we have an opposition at this point? Because when I look at the vet fiasco and how everything was sort of unfolding, obviously this is now starting all the way back in Feb. So it's been ongoing for some time. And it's so really difficult to follow along and to basically pinpoint that guy as the bad guy, the good guy, because it's just so confusing. And I've find myself asking the question that, okay, cool, who's in charge here? Who is the boss? Because you would assume the boss are the people within the executive, right? The people that make up the executive of the cabinet, which are the different ministers, with the president included, of course. You'd assume those are the people that are in charge. But, and then, okay, with them being in charge, then you'd have every other person being opposition, right? Meaning they're the ones that hold them accountable. They're the ones that basically put them in line. And you would know, if you look at the history of South Africa, that opposition has achieved some really, really, really key sort of things in the past, because we come from a point where ANC was the majority party for so long. And along the way, we've seen the strength of the opposition, right? We cannot deny that fact. And I'm not talking about one singular party, but when of the opposition holds together, we have seen that the strength of that in terms of just protecting the country and the country's interests. So with that in mind, I do think the opposition is important. But right now, I'm not sure where the opposition is coming. I'm not sure where the opposition is. That, again, very, very good reference here, because now the way the ANC, I believe, formed this GNU is that, okay, cool, we've got a government of national unity, we've placed the different people in the different ministries, but the door is wide open, right? So that also very, very, very devilish of the ANC to say, yeah, it's not really formal, we're not really attached to any of these people. They're just here, but they can go if they want to. Midway on this vet fiasco, I heard something about other people joining in the GNU as early as like tomorrow. And I'm just like, okay, cool. It's just the shift is happening so rapidly. What's going on? Did you consult the other people? If you get more people in, what happens to the different ministries? Who goes, who stays? So that whole sort of thing, it's obviously a fiasco because it was just so confusing. I completely lost track. Does highlight the fact that with the GNU, and I think it is another blunder from the ANC, to not formalize, who is actually the leadership here? Who is in charge? Because to have every single political party coming in with their perspective on something, they say yes, he says no, she says yes, maybe. Hey man, we've got South Africa to look after. We need to move forward. Take, for example, the issue of the USA. This one guy is saying pro-US, saying the US can go shove it. Who is speaking for South Africa, right? Because that becomes another problem. There is no decisive leadership. There is no actual structure that separates current leadership. These are the people that are accountable. This is the opposition, and they are the ones that keep them accountable. And to get to the ugly, this is now the bottom of the barrel, the pits. And I have to give it to the African National Congress. The ANC is the ugly when it comes to this GNU. You probably ask yourself, how come they formed the GNU? It was their initiative. They invited all of these people in. To hell with that understanding. I think the ANC is, I hold this opinion, right? That the ANC, when there's a problem, particularly the ANC under the leadership of Ramaphosa, when there is a problem, they do not run to say, how do we solve the problem? Their first issue is, how do we create a different perception of the problem? How do we create the perception that the problem is not really that bad? Or how do we create a perception that we are not the reason why there's a problem? Because ANC loses majority, right, coming out of the elections. They don't humble themselves and say, hey, we lost. We need to now form a coalition of other guys. We need to They come with some PR spin to call it the government of national unity. And everyone kept asking the question, but why are you calling it a GNU? Why not just call it coalition? So that's another, I think, a strength of Ramaphosa. It's a strength because he's good at spinning, but he's not good at actually delivering, in my opinion. So the ugly definitely becomes the African National Congress when it comes to the GNU. They formed it, but we are in a mess because of the way in which it was initiated. There isn't an actual concrete agreement. I mentioned this in the previously, that there is no clear separation of who is who in the zoo. And now that obviously the GNU is in motion, in practice, it's operating as a coalition, but it wasn't formed as a coalition, right? So there are also those blurred lines. It's very, very confusing. And what is also coming across is that the ANC is not a really good player. Even if you put them in this coalition formation, they're not a good player, because what I look at is that the ANC is saying it's our way or the highway. It's our policy. It's what we think is right, or it's the highway, right? The mere fact that when they were separating the different seats, now allocating ministers to different seats, they held on to key ministries. They held on to, for example, the economic cluster, the state security cluster. They held on to that. They also held on to the international sort of relation space. Justice is them. So as a South African voter, you look at this and you're saying, okay, cool, but will there actually be change if you guys are still basically holding the key ministries? Because we cannot really change anything. You cannot move the country forward. We're looking at this battle now with that, right? If the ANC wanted to get away with that, we saw how they tried their level best to get away with that. And even after the court ruling, even after all of these things, they're still not coming out right and saying, hey man, we made a mistake, South African voters. We made a mistake. We miscalculated the budget. Kodongana made a mistake. There was an extra zero. He thought he needed the VAT, but actually we don't. We want to make sure that people do not suffer and have to pay more. You're not getting that from the ANC. You're getting everything else but pointing fingers, blaming other people. But at the bottom line, it's clear that this came from that camp. It's their initiative. And so is everything else that we are seeing today. Them holding on to their policy is also very worrying to me, because they, in this GNU, and I could be wrong, there is what they call the clearing house, which is supposed to be like a political structure where the different parties that are part of the GNU can then take their debates and go into this clearinghouse and battle whatever needs to. Let's say, for example, they want to instate a new road, right? They go into the clearinghouse, they battle, how are we going to go about it, which part will be state funded, which part of the road will come from private sector. Then once they get through the clearinghouse, the clearinghouse would then mean it is cabinet ministers, it's all the different political parties that are part of the GNU, including the sideline members. For example, you take your Fulfil Balula, he would also be involved in the clearinghouse, even if he is not a minister, or even if he's not formally in government. But the clearinghouse structure would then be the political platform for them to work together as this GNU, right? Then from clearinghouse, they reach a consensus. Now they know when they go into parliament, this is our stance. They are a united front. They go into parliament, they say, us as the executive of in sort of the parliament, this is what we are putting forward. They already part of being the GNU, they hold the majority seat, so they would be able to pass anything that they discuss. But it is just everything else but that. The ANC does not seem to be willing to discuss these policies. They're not willing to let go of some of these policies. Just because you believe that something is good because it's driving transformation does not actually mean that it is the case. Like, they need to understand. Just because you look at this and you're like, no, but we need to, this is transformation. It does not mean that's the case. There is no such a thing that there's only one way to achieve redress, or there's only one way to achieve transformation. It does not have to be BE. That is not the only vehicle that you can achieve transformation. There are so many other ways that have been proposed by all the different think tanks, the academic guys. There's so many ways to achieve this socialism thing that they still want to achieve without destroying your prospects. So, I mean, I could go on, but I think the ANC is the ugly when it comes to this GNU. They are basically telling these guys it's our way or the highway. There is no will to compromise. Instead, it's just a spin show after a spin show after a spin show. That's all I have for you guys for this video. Please let me know your thoughts. How are you feeling about the GNU? Where do you stand? In June of 2025, it's going to be exactly 1 full year since this GNU was formed. Where are you? What is the good, the bad, the ugly in your opinion? How are you feeling about the GNU going forward? Do you think this kind of formation and national government makes sense? Are you in support of it? Are you not? Let me know all of that in the comment section. And before you go, I'd really appreciate it if you subscribe to my YouTube channel, and also please like this video in order to boost the views as well. I would appreciate your support. I look forward to seeing you again when I drop my next video.